Well, let's talk a little bit about Concacaf then, right? Because U.S. were the only team in Concacaf to get out of the group stages. Not a great look for Concacaf, especially as we're going into hosting this next World Cup. Obviously, Tata Martino out. Costa Rica and Canada failed to advance. Costa Rica had some sniffs of it on the final day, going up 2-1, about to send Spain and Germany out of the tournament, but just not strong enough. And I would look at the ranking of this of Costa Rica was like an any given Sunday type of thing, right? If they were going to get out with the team that they had, the players that they had, and the levels that they were playing, it was going to have to all come together consistently. They were very close to that. But I wouldn't say that the quality that they have consistently in terms of potential, like they're at the end of a cycle, you know? And I think they were past the end of that cycle and hadn't been able to regenerate the new players in that cycle. But then when I look at Canada, I think they were extremely naive because what I saw from them against Belgium, what I saw from them in the start against Croatia, they were running on teams the same way that we saw in CONCACAF, where you're like, dude, these guys can run the wings. They run at speed. They're very, very hard to stop. You know, whether it was Eustaquia or others in the midfield controlling the flow of the game, the defense that we've criticized, not criticized, but we were always questioning because we're like, these are all just like MLS defenders. And they were rotating them every qualifier, and they were just getting shutout after shutout because they were so disciplined. Just got absolutely ran over in the second and third games of this tournament. And then finally for Mexico, the upside that I'd say for Mexico, and I say this for the region, not because I'm a Mexico fan, but we need Mexico to do well, and for our region, is that there are players they are having the same conversations about players that played in this World Cup that big clubs in Europe want now, and Mexico doesn't have big players playing in big clubs in Europe right now, and they need that. We need those players in our region going abroad and challenging themselves outside of our domestic leagues. I think domestic leagues are super important. But that's sort of my take on that. Give me your take of just like the 3-4 teams, whether it's managerial changes, if you think they should have them, your take on their World Cup performances and where you think things are going to go.
Well, I think Costa Rica, they're all old. They're aging out. The changing of the guard, and in 4 years' time, that they're going to lose Keylor Navas. You know, you certainly are going to lose Cecil Borges, and I just feel like
Campbell's probably going to be out by then.
Joe Campbell's 30, so he's 34. I just think they're not going to be as strong as we've seen in CONCACAF. Mexico, on the other hand, they don't have the quality coming through like we do. Mm-hmm. They should be praying.
We're miles ahead with that.
Yeah,
we're miles ahead. We're 2-3 years into that development in Europe.
Them for the next 4 years. And then Canada, I think Canada is the one that had probably were humbled quite a bit in this tournament because they came in just like their coach, cocky as hell. They're super talented and they're fearless, but they were a little cocky. They're on the side of being naive and everyone's gonna have to adjust.
I mean, they were loud in qualifying too. If you think about it, it's hard not to be, right? Because you've been screaming at the top of your lungs at the mountaintop trying to get people to hear you, and then finally you sweep through qualifying and people are like, yeah, exactly, we've been doing this all along, no one's been paying attention. And you're like, well, you don't even make the final round of qualifying usually. But now you got this team talented, I think by and large, because the MLS has pumped a bunch of money into it, or the teams have pumped money into their academies, developing players, providing outputs. You've got the Canadian Premier League, you've just got this growing soccer audience, and then you've got the soccer culture there that's phenomenal. But I agree with you, there was a little piece of humble pie that came with that little thin gray area between like confident and arrogant. I think they leaned a little too far into that, and within one moment we found ourselves out on it too. But like you get smacked.
Yeah. But I think they're going to be better for it. So I think Canada, like Alistair Johnston just got to move to Celtic. So you look at the options that they have. They're all young. It's a country that's growing tremendously in prospects. The sport is popular in Canada. Everyone's behind this World Cup. They're going to be a force. I think this World Cup and getting that experience and getting smacked up is definitely going to help them in 2026. So they are going to be, I think, for us, that's 1 and 2. I honestly think it's going to be us and Canada competing to be the top CONCACAF team. I think Mexico, they're off it right now.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, looking at this, are the U.S. way out in front of Concacaf of everyone, right? Because remember all the criticisms that came in where the U.S. finished in qualifying, we barely qualified, we blah, 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 Canada running away at the top, Mexico were better than us, and blah, 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 blah. But, again, trophies, getting out of the group stages as the normal for the U.S. Do you think the U.S. is still way out in front of the other nations in terms of where things are at? Because when push comes to shove, the U.S. qualified. Yeah, we didn't qualify on top like we had hoped. We got out of the group stages of a tough group. Yeah, not as tough as probably Mexico and Belgium's group. But those are incremental steps. Now they're disappointing to us because we want them to get to the quarterfinals. But do you think all of that put together suggests that the U.S. is way out ahead of CONCACAF right now in terms of the players that we have and the fact that we're getting performances with those players?
Yeah, I would say we're definitely not way out in front. So I would say that we're still a work in progress because we're still working on a lot of things. Trust me, there's some positives. We've come together. We've got some core guys in this group, but we don't know what the future looks like. Who's going to be the coach? Is Greg staying on? Are they giving him another opportunity? Does he want to stay? Is it who? And if he says I'm out, who's the target? Because I don't think you can necessarily just say done and then not have a coach for a year if the right candidate doesn't present itself. So I think that's something U.S. Soccer is going to have to do. Ernie Stewart in particular is saying who's going to take us to the next level, and does that. Where is that person? Who is that person? And how do we get him to be a part of this project? I think it's such a desirable project. I don't see how too many coaches would turn it down because it's here. You have 48 teams. It's all this buzz. America has all these options and talented players and exciting players. So it's an incredible opportunity. Whoever would get that chance to lead the way. But I think if you don't go with Greg, then I think you need to go with someone who has had experience coaching into the international stage in a World Cup and has got a good sense of how to develop talent and get this young team to play a certain way, to play to get the most out of this talented group of players. That for me is most important.
Well, that's well said, Charlie, and
that's my final thought.
I like that. I'm gonna count that as your final thought.